Welcome to The Explainer. So let's just jump right into something we've literally all felt. Have you ever noticed how, with every passing birthday, time just seems to slip away faster and faster? Well, you're absolutely not making it up. Today, we're diving straight into the science of why our internal clocks go completely haywire as we get older. And, more importantly, we're going to look at some proven ways to actually hit the brakes. Seriously, why is it that 7 years in childhood felt like an absolute eternity, but right now, a whole year just flashes by in what feels like a single month? It's kind of baffling and honestly almost an unsettling experience, right? You blink and suddenly, boom, it's December again. We all go through this massive shift in how we perceive time. And researchers, psychologists, and even physicists have spent decades trying to figure out exactly why this happens to us. So let's start with Section 1, the cruel math, and Paul Janet's proportional theory. This concept was first thrown out there by a French philosopher named Paul Janet way back in 1877. And honestly, there's a pretty deep, slightly cruel irony to it, because mathematically speaking, adulthood literally shrinks our perception of the present. Just picture a 5-year-old. To them, a single year is a massive 20% of their entire existence on this planet. When you measure a year against everything you've ever known, it's this huge, significant chunk of data. No wonder the wait between birthdays drags on forever. Mathematically, for that kid, it actually is forever. But then, compare that to a 40-year-old. For them, that exact same calendar year is just a tiny 2.5% sliver of the life they've already lived. Since our brains are constantly comparing passing time to the total amount of time we've experienced, every new year becomes a smaller and smaller fraction. It's a really elegant, if, slightly depressing mathematical explanation. But while the math makes total sense, modern science tells us it's really just one tiny piece of the overall puzzle. Which brings us to Section 2, the neuroscience, and what happens when your brain is on autopilot. To really get where our time is going, we have to meet the main biological villain here, which is the incredible efficiency of our own brains. Think about it. In childhood, every single day is packed with firsts. All that constant novelty triggers huge surges of dopamine in the hippocampus, making those memories super vivid and detailed. But as adults, our brains are basically running on autopilot. Your brain looks at your standard morning commute, recognizes the pattern, and just chucks it right into a folder labeled "No update required." Because we're processing so much less new information, time literally just edits itself right out of our memory. In fact, researchers at the Cambridge Center for Aging and Neuroscience found this process called neural de-differentiation. Basically, as we get older, the activity patterns in our brain become way less distinct. Our brains just switch between stable states a lot less often. Think of it like a movie camera. When you're young, that camera is shooting at super high frames per second, catching every tiny, vivid detail. But as you age, the camera takes fewer and fewer frames. So the movie of your life ends up having way fewer mental cuts or boundaries between actual events. Professor Adrian Bejan, a physics professor at Duke University, argues that our physical brains literally process visual info slower as we age. As our neural networks get more complex and those signal pathways degrade a bit over time, electrical impulses just have to travel further. The result? We're taking in fewer frames per second. It's kind of like a flipbook that you're thumbing through way too fast right to the very end. So if your brain is breaking your experiences into fewer separate events, that means you have far fewer landmarks in your memory. A week full of the exact same routine days creates almost no event boundaries at all. Your brain has literally nothing to anchor onto. So when you look back, that whole week or month or even year just blends into this one forgettable smear. Your retrospective sense of time completely shrinks simply because your mind has nothing new to grab hold of. And now for Section 3, the antidote, and how to actually slow down that internal clock. Okay, so here's the really good news. We are absolutely not helpless victims of our own neural efficiency. The most empowering takeaway from all this research is that our subjective sense of time is actually something we can control. Here are 4 proven ways to knock your brain off autopilot. Number 1, travel to new places. Number 2, learn a totally new skill. Number 3, put the phone away and ditch the digital overload. And number 4, actively seek out awe and nature. We know routine makes time vanish, right? Well, traveling or learning a new skill demands a huge amount of cognitive effort, and that generates fresh dopamine. Travel is naturally packed with event boundaries. You're seeing new streets, eating new food, hearing new languages. Learning a skill does the exact same thing. It forces your brain to actively encode massive amounts of new data instead of just skimming familiar patterns. In both cases, you're building fresh temporal landmarks, which literally stretches out how you perceive time. Then there's the digital side of things. If you're constantly doom scrolling on your phone, your attention is totally fragmented, meaning you aren't laying down any distinct memories. By putting the phone away, cutting the digital noise, and practicing a little mindfulness, you actually boost your awareness of time passing. Studies are super clear on this. Anchoring yourself in the present moment makes you feel way less rushed. You're forcing your brain to pay attention to the literal second you're in, rather than just letting it fade into the background. And finally, there's awe, that incredibly powerful feeling of wonder you get when you're out in nature or looking at some massive, incredible piece of architecture or art. Psychologists have found that experiencing awe captures our attention so completely that it acts like a literal time bender. It pulls you entirely into the present, slowing down your internal clock and making moments feel abundant and rich rather than scarce. You know, time speeding up isn't a sign that your mind is failing. It's honestly just a sign that your life has become a little too routine. And the power to change that is entirely in your hands. Take a different route home today. Try cooking something you've never made before. Just remember this: time cannot be stopped, but we can totally fill it with moments that make it feel longer. Thanks for joining us for this explainer. Now get out there and start creating some new temporal landmarks.